Ladies and gentlemen, today we have some absolutely bombshell news coming out of none other than the Department of Government Efficiency. Now, ever since President Trump stepped back into office, the Department of Government Efficiency has been busy delivering historic reforms by rooting out systemic fraud, waste, and corruption inside of the federal government. But so just the other day, the Department of Government Efficiency delivered what is perhaps the single largest cost-saving cut to date, and frankly, this entire situation is almost unbelievable. You see, just the other day, the Department of Government Efficiency officially identified and purged approximately 12.3 million individuals from the Social Security benefit system, all of whom were well over the age of 120 years old. Did you hear that, folks? Over 12 million individuals over the age of 120 years old were just sitting in the Social Security system. Now, as far as I can tell, the average monthly Social Security payment in 2024 was right around $1,900. So if every single one of these recently purged individuals within the Social Security system were actually collecting monthly Social Security payments, that would equate to around $23 billion a month worth of Social Security fraud. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot to unpackage here, but before we do, I want to say real quick that if you guys enjoy the daily news updates, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. But okay, check this out. To be entirely honest, it's probably unlikely that all 12.3 million of these individuals over the age of 120 were actually receiving Social Security payments every month, but still, without a shadow of a doubt, this Social Security purge has just saved the federal government billions of dollars worth of entitlement fraud. That's just undeniable. And of course, in the midst of this absolutely massive news, you can't help but notice that the radically progressive Democrats are completely silent about this entire situation, suggesting their complicity in protecting all of the systemic fraud within the federal government. And then, of course, the left-wing mainstream media just refuses altogether to cover any of the Department of Government Efficiency's massive achievements, likewise working with the radical progressives in the federal government to preserve all of their fraud and corruption. But so, ladies and gentlemen, check this out. So far, the Department of Government Efficiency has been able to identify and cut over $175 billion worth of fraud, corruption, and waste out of our federal government's budget. And if you divide that out amongst all of us American citizens, that means that so far, the Department of Government Efficiency has saved each and every one of us over $1,000. But to give you guys a little bit of a better insight into just how exactly all of this taxpayer money has been getting wasted, take a look at this.
Do you guys feel you're getting justice and accountability?
One of the, I think, extreme examples of non-accountability in some cases has occurred at some of the small agencies. I think the Inter-American Foundation, IAF, is one of the agencies we visited where they get $50 million a year, congressional money, to give grants. These are things like, alpaca farming in Peru, improving
That's a real example.
Yes, that's the real description. Improving the marketability of peas in Guatemala.
Really?
Fruit jam. Yes.
What? Yeah.
So you might expect, in the private sector, a nonprofit to give, 80 to 90% of their money to grantees. In the case of IAF, that was 58%. So the other half goes towards management, travel.
What we're defined exactly, to Ethan's example is that even if you agreed with supporting alpaca farmers in Peru, well, actually, most of the money never made it out of D.C. Mm-hmm. It's going into the pockets of people in the neighborhood.
What percentage?
And they didn't even get to Peru.
Right. So what percentage do you think doesn't even get to the destination it's supposed to?
I believe the GAO estimate, so this is not our estimate, I believe it was on the order of only 10 to 15 cents on the dollar actually gets to the end recipient, whether you agree with that cause or not.
So they're just stealing the money before it even gets anywhere.
There's layers of stealing. So there's the first layer of stealing, second layer of stealing, third layer of stealing,
Subcontractor, subcontractor,
You start peeling the onion. Yeah,
subcontractor.
exactly. Contractor, subcontractor. It's like peeling an onion. And then maybe, and sometimes it's zero. Just flat, you get to the bottom of the onion, there's nothing there.
So maybe no one got a sex change in Guatemala.
It's possible that no one got a sex change in Guatemala.
So, ladies and gentlemen, just in case there was any confusion as to just how corrupt our federal government really is, there you have it. The reality is, the Department of Government Efficiency's findings just continue to showcase the degree to which the federal government has been mismanaged for decades, allowing billions in fraud and waste to go completely unchecked. And you can't help but notice that as the Department of Government Efficiency continues to scour through the financial history of various federal agencies, they just continue to find nonstop waste, corruption, and fraud. In fact, as an example, as you all just heard a moment ago, the Department of Government Efficiency has now determined that only 10 to 15% of federally funded foreign aid actually makes it to its end recipient, with the rest of the money just being siphoned off by various corrupt entities along the way. And so this is why the radical progressives have been fighting tooth and nail to stop the Department of Government Efficiency and to protect agencies like USAID, because it's the radical progressives who have been the main beneficiaries of all of this fraud and corruption inside of the federal government. The reality is that they know day by day they are losing their taxpayer-subsidized slush fund. They try to portray themselves as being noble and charitable, tirelessly working to help impoverished people around the world. But in reality, programs like USAID have proven to be nothing more than a slush fund for the radical progressives. And so this is why the radically progressive federal judiciary has been waging lawfare against the Department of Government Efficiency, trying to bog them down with various lawsuits and information release requests. Really, they're just throwing everything they can at the Department of Government Efficiency in an attempt to make them less efficient. Luckily, though, it seems that at least for now, the U.S. Supreme Court is siding with the Department of Government Efficiency, helping to shut down the radically progressives' ongoing attempt to weaponize the federal judiciary. But so, folks, here's the truth. This recent Social Security purge is really just the beginning of the Department of Government Efficiency's war on federal waste and corruption. Now that President Trump is back in the White House, the federal government slush fund is officially done for, which means that now it is finally time to put America first. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we wrap up, I do want to say real quick that we officially have a Morse News Twitter page as well as a Morse News Facebook page. So if you use either of those platforms, please go down below and drop a follow in order to get breaking news updates that relate to everything we talk about here in the YouTube videos. But everyone, that is going to be a wrap for today's video, so please go down below and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this. Please like the video while you're down there, and like I said earlier, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. Thank you all very much for tuning in today, and of course, as always, stay safe.